So I want to ask you a question. Who has ever had an idea that someone told them was crazy? Come on, really? You don't want to admit it, right? You are in good company, though. People have told me that like my entire life, almost every idea that I've ever had, probably. And today, you're in the right place, because what we're going to talk about is how we help you take that crazy idea and turn it into the next big idea. Is anyone here a history buff? Do you know what today is, April 19th? It is the day a shot was heard around the world. It was the first day of the American Revolution. A single gunshot that set in motion a sequence of events that changed our history. The world that we live in today, at least here in the US. And here we are, 244 years later, in the midst of another revolution. The fourth industrial revolution that will fundamentally change, and is fundamentally changing, the way that we live, work, and interact. Whether it's a civil uprising or technology disruption, times like this require bold leaders that take bold action against a bold vision for the future. Are you up for the challenge? Are you ready to take on that opportunity and take advantage of the time we live in? Who do you think of when you think of a bold leader, a transformational leader? We all have our favorites. I want to share with you mine. Mine is a guy named Paul. I knew Paul in the 90s, but in the 80s, Paul worked for the Minneapolis Star Tribune. And back in the 80s, the way that a newspaper journalist did, the editors did the layouts for the newspaper, they used a machine called a phototypesetter, and it looked like this, right? Now, you see the screen? That screen is probably the size of your phone. Can you imagine doing the layout for a newspaper from something that size? So, no, can't. It's really attractive, too. You can see how the green probably popped off of that screen, too. So Paul, he did not believe this was the future of the industry. And he believed the future of the industry was in computers. And he wanted to be part of that revolution, not this. And so he moved to Seattle. He moved away from Minneapolis. He moved to Seattle, and he took a job with a company called ATEX, a small company that was using computers to automate various parts of the newspaper production process. Unfortunately, and fortunately at that time, he didn't have very much time there, because in 1984, Kodak bought ATEX and they shut down the Seattle operation. So they offered Paul a job in Boston, but Paul had bigger ideas. He had bolder ideas. He had a much bigger vision for the future. And he told his mom at that time, I am either going to be very, very wealthy by the time I'm 40, or very poor, and probably living home with you. So his mom was like, go, Paul. Right? So Paul and 5 other ATEX employees started a company. And their big vision was to change the way books, magazines, and newspapers were published, to democratize the publishing process. And they launched the desktop computer market. The product was PageMaker. The company was Aldus. And they succeeded in their vision. Paul coined the phrase desktop publishing. I actually had the opportunity to work at Aldus and for Paul in the early 90s. And he was an amazing leader, really inspirational, super connected to his customers and his employees. He's one of the first of several really great leaders I've had the opportunity to work with. I want to share with you another great leader. His name is Bill Allen. Bill was the CEO of Boeing in the 1950s, and Boeing was facing a crisis. Because while they had provided thousands of planes to the military during the war, the military contracts were drying up, and they had no commercial business to speak of. As a matter of fact, they had less than 1% market share. And at that time, all of his competitors had lots of passenger propeller engines, planes in the commercial market, and they had not one in production. So Bill knew he needed to take bold action. His vision was that jet propulsion was the future of the aviation industry, and he wanted to build the first commercial jetliner. Now, everyone thought he was crazy because they said, fuel is too expensive, the plane will be too heavy, and it will never leave the ground. As a matter of fact, I'm from Seattle. They actually said that exact same thing to Boeing when they wanted to build the Dreamliner just a few years ago, too. But Bill was convicted. He could not find a single investor, though. Nobody would invest in his idea. He could not get a single pre-order from any of the airlines. And so he did the inconceivable. He convinced his board to self-fund the design and the development of the first commercial jetliner. They bet the entire company on his vision. And they all thought that both Bill and Boeing were crazy. But when that first 707 took to the sky, and it carried twice the passengers and covered the distance in half the time, Bill effectively shrunk the world in that moment. And it was the beginning of the jet era. Boeing's profits and market share took off and haven't stopped. Both Bill and Paul are two leaders that blaze the trail. I am not getting to the next slide for you, so maybe somebody in the back can fix that. Both Bill and Paul were two leaders that blazed the trail. In times of transitions, it takes a leader with a bold vision, who is willing to step out, who is willing to push through the naysayers, who is willing to share his vision, his or her vision, with everyone and bring them along that journey. So in the back, if you could come along the slides with me, that would be great. So I ask you, what is your bold vision? What is the idea that you have in your mind? When I think about that, and I think about our times that we are in right now, we are in a huge time of transition. Anything is possible now. Technology has reached the stage where it is in everybody's hands. The amount of compute power, the storage, the networking, the security, the ability for you to make anything you can imagine real, the ability to take all of the data and put it into machine learning, artificial intelligence. It enables you to take any idea that you have and make it real. And your customers are ready for the change. Industries are changing now. Think about healthcare. Think about what's going on in healthcare using mixed reality and artificial intelligence that enables surgical procedures to be fundamentally different today than they've ever been. Manufacturing, where organizations can do predictive maintenance using predictive analytics on machines that are thousands of miles away. Think of what Elon Musk is doing with the automotive industry. Alternative fuel, mixed reality, artificial intelligence. Cars are going to look very different in 5 years than they do today. Maybe even like the Jetsons pods, right? And then you think about even things like farming, agriculture, use of Internet of Things. And even in your home, the way your refrigerator, your thermostat are connected and working differently. Those are all things that are happening right now. And so you can take the idea that's in your head that may be crazy, and you too can make that real. You too can build a whole business, a whole industry, disrupt a whole industry from that single idea. So I want to share with you the way technology is actually making the world a better place. I want to share with you a video about my friend Saqib and something that really touched my heart.
I'm Saqib Sheikh. I lost my sight when I was 7, and shortly after that I went to a school for the blind, and that's where I was introduced to talking computers, and that really opened up a whole new world of opportunities. I joined Microsoft 10 years ago as a software engineer. I love making things which improve people's lives. And one of the things I've always dreamt of since I was at university was this idea of something that could tell you at any moment what's going on around you.
I think it's a man jumping in the air doing a trick on a skateboard.
I teamed up with like-minded engineers to make an app which lets you know who and what is around you. It's based on top of the Microsoft Intelligence APIs, which makes it so much easier to make this kind of thing. The app runs on smartphones, but also on the Pivot Head smart glasses. When you're talking to a bigger group, sometimes you can talk and there's no response, and you think, is everyone listening really well, or are they half asleep? And you never know.
I see two faces, 40-year-old man with a beard looking surprised, 20-year-old woman looking happy.
The app can describe the general age and gender of the people around me and what their emotions are, which is incredible. One of the things that's most useful about the app is the ability to read out text.
Hello, good afternoon. Here's your menu.
Great, thank you. I can use the app on my phone to take a picture of the menu, and it's going to guide me on how to take that correct photo.
Move camera to the bottom right and away from the document.
And then it'll recognize the text. Read me the headings.
I see appetizers, salads, paninis, pizzas, pastas.
Years ago, this was science fiction. I never thought it would be something that you could actually do. But artificial intelligence is improving at an ever faster rate. And I'm really excited to see where we can take this. As engineers, we're always standing on the shoulders of giants, building on top of what went before. And in this case, we've taken years of research from Microsoft Research to pull this off.
I think it's a young girl throwing an orange frisbee in the park.
For me, it's about taking that far-off dream and building it one step at a time. I think this is just the beginning.
It's not science fiction. It's real. That app is available in the Apple Store right now, Seeing AI. You can get it out and you can play with it. I would advise, though, that if you do that, don't do it around your children. Because I was playing with it, and my son took it. He held it up to his textbook, and it started reading to him the textbook, and he said, "Mom, I never have to read again." I was like, not the point. Saqib did not do that alone. Saqib, he had that idea for a long time. But it was during a Microsoft hackathon where we bring employees together and they socialize and share their ideas, and then they bring it out to the rest of the company, and people add on to it, and people join in and contribute time, and then they help make those things real, and they take them forward. And so it really speaks to what you can do when you have a vision and you can make it real enough for people to latch onto and build on. So how do you lead through this momentous change? How do you take your idea and make it real? It really starts with the idea. It starts with turning that idea into a vision. You have to give it form and function. You have to make it something that people can really understand. So, for instance, Saqib, it was help the blind see. Simple. For Paul, it was probably, I want it to be as easy to do publishing as taking out a piece of paper and a pen and drawing it out, and that's what it is. What you see is what you get. For Bill, it was, I want hundreds of people to cross the ocean in less than a day. All crazy ideas at the time when the person had it. So you want to take your vision, and you don't want to just say it's the next logical action. You want to go bold. You want to go big. Shoot for the stars. What would it look like if you were wildly successful? For me, I do this through headlines. I do it with every initiative, every big challenge, every new team. I say, what would it look like if we were wildly successful? What would the headlines be? $20 billion in the year 2020? Or would it be Gartner Magic Quadrant in the next 2 years? What would our customers say? What would our sellers say? What would our partners say? However you do it, you want to be able to make that something that people can feel good about and can put their arms around and understand what you're talking about. But the key thing is socializing that idea. I also think, from my experience, this might be one of the hardest things people do. Because the idea initially, it sounds crazy, and you don't really know what it is. Like, you have a sense of what you think it could be, but you don't know how to get there yet. The key is you actually want to start to talk about your idea and socialize it to people when it's like 20% baked, when all you have is a straw man. Because what I found is if you wait longer than that, if you wait until you have put a business case together, gathered all the data, worked through all the objections people might have to the idea, then you have fallen in love with your own idea. And so when you bring it out and start talking to people, and they start picking it apart or morphing it or adding things to it, which inevitably will happen, which is actually what you want, you may get defensive, you may not hear them, because you are so in love with this idea already. So bring it out when it's still malleable, when it's still new. Because your intention of socializing it is not to get buy-in. Buy-in is the outcome of what happens. But your intent is to actually make the idea better, to make the outcome better, to give the idea away, to have people start owning it and building on it and enjoying it and sharing in it. That's what you want to do with socialization. The next step is, now you have to build a roadmap. You have to figure out how are you going to get from here to there. What are going to be the mile markers, the benchmarks, the milestones, the measure of success along the way so people know they're heading in the right direction. And so you know if you have to change course. The key with this is you want to make those milestones really close together. Because you need to build momentum. You want to generate energy around the idea. And you do that by finding quick wins. Identifying what would be the next thing that would happen where you could celebrate the success. Because what happens is that with each milestone, you bring people along and you celebrate the success of hitting that milestone, more people want to join in. They want to be part of the project. People want to be part of something that is successful. And so you want to bring them along and you want to celebrate every moment. And when you celebrate that success, when you celebrate that quick win, you want to credit every single person who had anything to do with the success of that milestone. You want every contributor to feel like they were the key contributor to the success of that milestone. Because that makes them want to do it again and again. It makes them want to do more for you. And it starts to make this project, this initiative, much bigger than you ever imagined it could be. And you go from win to win to win to win, and sometimes failure to win to failure to win, until you hit your vision and it becomes real. It's not always easy, I know, because for me, what happens is that when I hit a milestone, I actually want to just move on to the next milestone because I'm so excited I just want to move to the next one. But I realize the key thing is I got to step back and celebrate that success and make everyone feel great about what we've just accomplished and feel like their contributions mattered, and then they do more and more and more. And you keep doing that until your vision becomes a reality. And so you have to remember to continually communicate. Communicate to your key stakeholders, to your leadership team, to your investors. Keep communicating that vision. You got to communicate that vision on an ongoing basis in a consistent way over and over and over again. So many times that you are sick of hearing yourself say it, and that you probably still haven't said it enough. And then you communicate where you are in the journey, how far along you are, every success, every win, every step along the way. What that does is it recommits your vision, it recommits you to the team, and it recommits the team to you and your vision as well. So I want to share with you my story of how I learned through my aha moments that led me to this formula, called formula, right? And it was not on purpose. This was like oh my, this works. It was back over a decade ago. I worked in the Windows commercial team, and we were releasing a product called Vista. How many of you remember Vista? Yeah. So, Vista was not all we were hoping it would be. And we were facing a crisis. We had big goals, and we did not have the ammunition we needed to get there. And so my idea was to create a companion product that would elevate the conversation away from the desktop and the desktop experience and move it into the realm of security, manageability, application management, which was a big issue at the time, and let us have a very different conversation with our customers. But at Microsoft, that was heresy. That idea was crazy because at Microsoft, Windows was it. You did not have a little product that pulled through Windows. Windows pulled through every other little product. And so it was a task for me to go find anyone that would invest in this idea, that would help me make it real. Now, I had no idea what the product was, but I knew what we could do, and I felt like, in my gut, this was the right thing for us to do. And so I talked to what felt like everyone at Microsoft at that time. I felt a little like that bird in the Dr. Seuss book, Are You My Mother? Right? And I talked about, what we could do, what our customers would say, how we could change the conversation, what were some of the acquisitions or the projects people were working on that we could pull together into a small product that we could get to the market fast. Because we were losing time, and we were losing market momentum, and we needed to do something. And so what I found during that time, I was forced to really socialize an idea that had no form or function, was that it was awesome. Because everyone I talked to, even though they thought I was crazy, they started to think about, what could it be? What do I have in my wheelhouse that I could contribute to this? And they started to add to it, and they started to make it bigger, and it started to take shape. And people started to take it on as a stretch project, nights and weekends, to figure out what we could do and find things that were going on in the market that we could bring in and buy to make this thing real. And pretty soon, we actually had something that was good enough to sell, still a little vaporware, but good enough to sell. And the Microsoft Desktop Optimization Pack for Software Assurance, MDOP we called it, started to take shape. Okay, so here's the other learning. Don't ever hire me to name your product. I don't do that anymore. But But as we started to build out what were the milestones along the way, there was a huge sense of urgency. I mean, we needed to generate momentum in the market. And so I did anything I could do to generate that momentum. I mean, everything was a big deal. We created lots of slide decks, we made videos, we did prototypes, we did demos, and we had readiness. Every single one of those was a milestone that I celebrated. And what I learned and found from that is that it made the engineers excited, and it brought more and more people onto the project because they wanted to be part of it, and they wanted to contribute, and they really wanted it to be successful. And the best thing is, I mean, I just gave that idea away. That was just theirs. It became theirs. They owned it. And it started to grow and build, and we got a lot of market momentum, so much so that by the time we actually did release MDOT, we had 1 million seats sold in the first 6 months. But more important than that, we had successfully elevated the conversation away from the user experience, the desktop, into the realm of security, manageability, and application virtualization. And we changed the course of Vista. And so that's how I learned. Like, I was like, aha. This is actually something that works. And I have used it on every single project ever since, and it works. It works to over-credit people. The cool thing about giving credit away, about crediting people for every single contribution, about making them feel like they were the singular critical success factor in your success, is that even if you give all of the credit away, there's still more. And these are things that I see as I try and help my team do this, as I try and work with partners to do this. It actually isn't natural. It isn't natural for people to talk about an idea when they don't really know what it means, when they don't really have a view of how they're going to get there. But that's value. That's when people can contribute. It's not natural to give all the credit away. But it works, it builds momentum, and it brings people to you. So I ask, do you guys want to be bolder? Do you want to take your idea and make it real? Do you have an idea in your head of something that you've been thinking, I really should do this? Anyone? Anything that's happened over the last couple of days where you had that moment of, no? Nobody? Okay, this is what I want you to do. I want you to take out your phones. I want everybody to take out your phones, and I want you to write down an idea that you have, that you are going to take back with you and talk to people about and see. Try this and see if you can't make that idea even better and better by talking about it. I don't see everybody doing this. I'm really serious. Take out your phone, write some idea. Okay, now I'm going to actually put you to the test. I want you to turn to the person next to you, and I want you to share your idea. I'm going to give you a minute. I want you to turn to someone, and I want you to share that idea. Go. All right, you're not talking to anybody. You should go talk to someone. Join a table. Okay, if you can hear my voice, I want you to say, shh. How many of you just heard an amazing idea or a crazy idea? All right, how many of you just had an amazing conversation with somebody? You know, if you're not raising your hand, the person you were just talking to is going to feel really bad. It's hard, isn't it? It's hard to talk about the idea. It's hard to just come up with an idea and just share it and just talk about it. But I want you to practice that. I actually think you should use the rest of this conference to talk to people about ideas that you have. Talk about the different things you hear in all of these different sessions and what could happen with it, what you could do with it, what would be different. And start seeing how that idea takes shape. How much more, as you talk to people, it builds and builds and builds on it. And then I want you to take that back, take that momentum back, take that learning back with you into your organizations. And I want you to talk about your idea. Socialize your idea. Get your organization to start socializing their ideas. And see if you can't come up with the next big idea, the really bold thing that will elevate your organization to a place that it's never been before, that will enable you to take advantage of this moment in time, this moment in history, this revolution that we're in, that we have finite amount of time to actually take advantage before the world completely changes, where you can be a fundamental part of that change. And then build your roadmap, find the quick wins that will enable you to make that idea one success after another success after another success, and help you to achieve your vision and make the world a better place. So the cool thing about my job is I actually get to do this every day. My job is to work with partners just like you and help you take your ideas and make them real. Build your business. Microsoft enables me to give you all of the platform, the tools, the technology, the resources to take your idea and power your success and make that something real. And so I want to hear about your ideas. I want to be inspired by you. I want to power your success. I want to be your partner. So please share with me, inspire me with your ideas. And if you don't take anything else away from this talk, I just want you to remember, be bold. Thank you.